All right, so next time I'm pleased to bring to the stage Ben Edmond for our Diamond keynote. I was saying to Ben just now that I remember getting a sort of tour of his platform at, I think, ITW when it was still in Chicago. So it's been several years. So I'm really curious to see how things have progressed over those 5 or so years. So with that, welcome to the stage, Ben Edmond, who is the CEO and founder at Connectbase. There you go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and enjoying the content. First off, introduce myself. My name is Ben Edmond. I am the CEO and founder of Connectbase and resident telecom nerd. Love the data world, love spending time and understanding our space. I've been operating in it since 1996 and got introduced to a small company called MCI at the time and have never left. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about who we are, what we do, and why, but really emphasize 3 key things as we get into the conversation. 1, location matters in the connected world and what that means to us as an audience at MEF. Talking about provisionability versus development and the need for scale in this industry. It's great that we've made the progress that we've made, but we need to take it to the next level. We should have our sights on 1,000, not 100. We should be thinking at scale in terms of experience and simplicity to help all of us deliver on a customer experience and the economics needed to create success. Turn on the slides here and dive right in. I'll also talk about the power of ecosystem. We have an ecosystem being formed here at MEF, and kudos to all the great work. How do you translate that into your own ecosystem as a competitive advantage in the market today? So who is Connectbase? We are not the biggest brand in the room. You may have never heard of us. Hopefully many have. But what we are is a SaaS-enabled and API-enabled connectivity ecosystem. We care about the transaction. Our job is to help automate and transform the experience around the buyer transaction and the seller transaction. And what we've done in pursuit of that is to create a cloud-based platform that is built on a foundation of location data, that has a set of applications sitting in a BSS for the seller and a set of applications built for the buyer, and have connected those 2 things together in an API fabric of 350 service providers to date and growing. Our vision is a programmable world. We believe in real-time transactions across APIs wherever they happen, and support the context of it should be personalized. It should be about your experience, and think about that in the context of how we operate every single day. From a numbers perspective, we've raised $49 million over the past 8 years. We have 172 team members that care, smart people motivated to help service providers as a core DNA of what we do. We do business with about 350 service providers today. We don't go over to the enterprise. Our customers are you in the audience, and we do business with a number of you today. Global Tier 1 operators, rural broadband providers, managed service providers, up and down the stack is who we serve, both on the buyer side and the seller side. We did about 25 million transactions across the platform, to put it in perspective, in the last 12 months, and growing quite rapidly. Why? What's the problem? When I first started the business in 2015, after having been in the provider space for the previous 20+ years, I recognized what many of you already know. The buying and selling process in the connectivity industry is broken. We are getting better. By far, over the last 8 years since I started this business, we've made massive strides. But in a world where the expectation is instantaneous, the consumerization is pushed into businesses every day, we still have a lot of work to do. We deal with inaccuracies that start at the root of all parts of the equation and flow in through, creating broken experiences. I look at the auto industry. I walk in and I buy a car this year, and I walk out with that car. In the broadband space today around the world, you can buy a broadband circuit and 20, 30, 40% of the time not get what you bought. That is atrocious. We need to solve for the root cause of these things at the data layer. We have a number of inefficient processes because stacks of systems and lack of transparency that these efforts to expose standards-based APIs start to address at meaningful scale, but we need more work to do. We want a world where there's a seamless ability to transact, where it's instantaneous in real time to get the right answer at the right moment. And we believe that location is ground truth for that effort. To understand unit economics, to understand your ability to serve, your partner's ability to serve, to understand what products are available, what demand potential and what competition, there is not a better perspective to look at and understand at ground truth than location. It's not the circuit, it's not the billing telephone number, it's not the account name, it is location. And if you treat it with the respect that it deserves, your quoting gets better, your prospecting gets better, your customer engagement gets better, your break-fix processes get better. Across the board, you elevate the experience that you have. And building an ecosystem where you have trusted relationships that are securely connected across APIs is foundational. But all sides need to talk in that common language. Industry standards help us get there. And us embracing that at scale, will accelerate this process. And while I am up here championing the LSO Sonata standard, I'm also advocating that we take out the subjectivity. We have too much subjectivity, and we see, having built 350 times connecting service providers to service providers, the degrees of subjectivity create expense, friction, cost, and hold us back as an industry. We should embrace and adopt standards and drive forward. When we think about location, I'm going to give you some context. When we think about provisionability over development, think about the wholesale organization in any one of your companies and the resources that they're allocated versus residential, enterprise, or other departments. It is a struggle to get capital approved to go and build more things for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're AT&T, BT, Telecom Italia, there's not unlimited budgets everywhere. Ultimately, we should think about ways to reduce that friction and not force build processes individually every single time, but the ability to transact and look at other industries as great examples of doing exactly that and building your ecosystem that matters. But let's look at an example of location. We have a location, 1900 South Washington Street, in a rural part of the US. And I'll give you an example in Germany next, just as we could do this in every country around the world. There are 31 standard ways without introducing secondary addresses that people type this in, to systems as sellers or buyers. And ultimately, it goes to one location. But if you're the incumbent and you say, this is my way, and if you don't send it across the API in that way, you don't connect to price, you don't connect to serviceability, you don't connect to product, you miss the customer experience opportunity to match and deliver your best self. When we think about the little things that create the experience for automation, we need to think about the content that's going across that payload. We need to embrace the reality that it's about a buyer-seller doing business, not about who's right. So, from our standpoint, we embrace the concept of IDs. And where we are trying to get the community to embrace our way of thinking, we're going to give. We're going to open source to the MEF community our global location ID system. And strongly urge you to consider how to think about embedding a universal global ID, not your ID, not a address only, not a set of lat-long coordinates, but a universal ID that you can pass across to match better. When we run this through our system, we translate all 31 of those addresses into a standardized ID and in a common framework so we can match buyer and seller together. That's what you should do. It's very simple. This is not what this industry does well. And we should be thinking about that and talking about that in communities. We can go to Germany and have the same experience. I, as an American, not knowing that Germany puts the number at the end of the address, type it in one way for my enterprise quote, or 26 different ways. At the end of the day, what matters is connecting the buyer to the right seller and helping them facilitate their truth of what is available. We translate all those into a global location ID. The ID has a set of intelligence around it, but it is connected to a spatial fabric around structures. There's all kinds of great grid systems out there. What 3 words? The challenge that I have with a pure grid system is you end up with 72 different grids in this building. So how do you connect that together? We've conformed that to a single ID structure and, once again, open source available to MEF community. But think about it in your own stack. How do you intake that address? How do you parse it? Because people don't search on IDs. They're going to search on addresses. That's just the way of the world. How do you parse it? How do you standardize it? How do you validate it? How do you match it and get to the right answer? Location matters. My next soapbox conversation is on provisionability. It is fantastic that we're all actually aligned on the vision. I see it in the audience today. I see it yesterday. The world now believes that this service provider community, big, medium, and small, should be connected together. Fantastic. Let's all recognize that we don't have unlimited resources. And just like tools like Apigee and MuleSoft in the IT stack, if we leverage tools of one-to-many, like Connectbase, we can accelerate far faster and go beyond any goals that we have right in place now. The ability to build once and then provision across the fabric is not a foreign concept to the world of IT. But in this community, it is still making traction. But if we think about the benefits and the goals of, do I need a secure one-for-one flow? Check, yes. Do I need the ability to say no? Check, yes. But can I get there faster together than myself? Yes. And so in the context, when you're thinking about how to get to 100 or 300 or 500 or 1,000 different service providers that you're selling to or buying from, think about the partnership across the ecosystem, not just your internal ability to build only. And lastly, as we look across the stack in the OSS BSS, we are not all things to all people, but we believe wholeheartedly that you guys have an opportunity to influence the overall stack that you operate. And if we think about it from an ecosystem perspective, given the importance of ecosystem, and ensure that that thought process is embedded in the stack deeply, in our system, in Salesforce, in ServiceNow, in Netcracker, in Amdocs, it doesn't matter. We should be thinking about how we connect across the ecosystem so we can deliver that global experience for the enterprise customer we care about. So we can deliver that roaming experience for the consumer customer we care about. So we can deliver whatever we're trying to deliver, wherever we're trying to deliver it. And that takes purpose. We believe in some of the things like the product category. Look at the product catalog standard in LSO Sonata. Product category is a thing. We need to make it a really important thing because there's a really simple concept of being found. If we look at the top 10 service providers in their product catalog, it's a pretty long list. If you have to navigate that in the terms of the branding and the nomenclature that each provider has, instead of wrapping it into an ecosystem perspective, you miss the opportunity for the right thing. The attribution and the wrapper matter because it's about the consumer, whatever the consumer is, a carrier relations person at a provider, an enterprise customer, and their ability to find the right answer. It's about location. Having a global location ID as a connector instead of your version of truth on that address. It doesn't matter if you're right. What matters is you get to the end result of trying to create value and deliver the experience. Quoting. We all see a race to zero that's been happening as long as I've been in this business, selling 27-cent long distance, and then 15-cent, and then so on and so forth. But if we start looking at how important network is in the world today, and start thinking about the attribution and how that interjects into the payload across the ecosystem to make the best possible decisions, as Paul articulated so well, latency matters in some use cases. Well, how does that manifest itself? How does it manifest itself if you don't have the right location information in place to calculate that on demand? Delivery times. To me, one of the biggest pains is not necessarily click a button and get it installed. It's knowing when it's going to be delivered and having certainty to it. Buyers care about those things. SLAs and assurance. Why aren't they a part of the automated experience more so than ever today? And we're getting there, but this ecosystem needs to continue to think about that because it's going to impact value. It's going to impact our ability to deliver more. When you think about our stack, this is a transparent view of how we look at our world. We look at it from that upper left-hand corner in the top row, serviceability first and foremost. If you don't understand where your partners are with purpose and have the tools to interact with them, we came up with a spatial pricing tool. Because you know what? In Guatemala, where my wife is from, they don't have a perfect set of addresses everywhere, and that's okay. There's tools and mechanisms, but you need to understand where. You need to have authority around it and be able to interact with it. Product catalog is important. Whether we're the system of truth or whether somewhere else is a system of truth, connect them together, adapt it, be able to incorporate your trusted partners and what their ability to serve, and flow that into a pricing engine that understands the space. As you continue to go across the board, you'll see at the far right, we have a new product being launched soon called Connectbase. It's not a product so much of an experience. One of the frictions we're trying to take out of the equation is the ability to start the relationship in the first place. We see that as a friction that is something we manually help this industry play matchmaker every single day, that we want to have a digital experience around. We call it Connectbase. We're not ready to show you yet, but anticipate it's going to be launched in the near future, i.e. the next 1 to 2 quarters, and we're super excited about it. Sellers are going to be able to be found, be able to convey terms, conditions. We are not a middleman. We are not an agent. We are not a reseller. We are a software partner for you to help you execute, whether you're a buyer or a seller or both. From a product standpoint, this is how we view the world, everything on top of that connected world data layer to understand who has what where from your perspective. And then enable sellers to sell, buyers to buy. Primarily, we're doing a lot of our customer business in the wholesale buying and the wholesale selling space, but we support channel organizations, commercial organizations. We sit inside other platforms. We stand alone. It's really up to you of how you want to interact with the Connectbase platform and ecosystem. But you see our foundation, i.e. Connectbase, our base is location. We believe in it, passionate about it. We want to be the best partner in the world to support it. And that is all I had this morning. Happy to take any questions before we wrap up. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you this morning, be a part of the MEF community, and hope you continue to adopt the frameworks. Question? For the link base? Open source, we'll work with the MEF organization, global location IDs in production today. We will, have something to the MEF community over the next couple sessions. So it's just a matter of making sure we're funneling it the right way for the MEF community. Yep. Any other questions? Yes. I am a for-profit business, and proud to be so. I find our economics are far better than trying to build everything yourself, but we're a subscription model very similar to ServiceNow, Salesforce, and other platforms out there with our own, particular point of view. Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it. Have a great day.